Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Once again, we got another 6 to 8 months of this, perhaps more, but I still feel a sense of connectedness when I'm with you on these Shabbats, and I hope you feel it too. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we begin. A lot of new things happening this weekend. We have a Social Justice Committee meeting tomorrow. We have our book club meeting. I'll be leading that discussion on Sunday at 2 p.m. We'll be talking about Rachel Kadish's The Weight of Ink. What a marvelous book about 17th century Jewry. We are starting a new Introduction to Judaism class. I'm calling it Introduction to Jews and Their Judaisms. And that's really the framing mechanism for us to understand all of what we can in a brief 8, 9, 10 session course. It debuts on October 27th. That's a Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. No matter where in the world you are most welcome to participate. And there is no password. We'll have people coming in through the waiting room. And if you're interested in membership, be sure and check us out at birminghamtemple.com. I think I've done all of the announcements that we need to do. And let's get right into celebrating Shabbat and welcoming it together. A reading by my friend and colleague, my mentor really, Rabbi Miriam Jairus. We gather virtually on this Shabbat as a community of believers. We believe that Judaism is the entire experience of the Jewish people. We believe that in the value of celebrating Jewish culture and identity. We believe that all those who choose to celebrate with us are part of our community. We believe that being together, even in this way, strengthens and enhances our humanistic Jewish experience. May this Sabbath be a time of peace and rejuvenation. This is a time of transition. We move from our everyday week to the experience of Shabbat. We turn from the concerns of the outside world and become quiet and peaceful. We at this moment, in this time, create a community of humanistic Jewish believers. Let us pause and take note as we begin the journey of this Shabbat. So I'll ask Arthur's famous hands to please light our candles. Baruch ha'or ba'olam, Baruch ha'or ba'adam, Baruch ha'or ba'shalom, Bashalom, Baruch ha'or, Baruch ha'or, Bashabbat. L'chaim, everybody. Good Shabbos. Few new readings this week. Considering others is fundamental to our biology, but there's always room for improvement. We can get better at being good people by thinking about what being good really means, reflecting on the needs of others and on ourselves. Humanists don't believe in any supernatural source of commands or rules for being good. Instead, humanists hold that we need to think for ourselves about what sort of person we want to be and about the consequences of our actions. Even people who say they're taking their morals from religious authority, sacred doctrine, or holy books, mostly have a very selective approach to this, carefully choosing parts that chime with what they already believe to be moral and ignoring other parts. So they're not really learning moral lessons from Scripture, rather imposing their own morals on those archaic texts, what Rabbi Wein used to call kosherizing them. Ricky Gervais has said, "A humanist is someone who always tries to do the right thing, even though no one is watching." Let's continue with this beautiful song from our movement, Yesh Makom, There's a Place.
There's a place.
The radical idea of humanism is that every human being should be seen as having dignity and equal worth simply by virtue of their humanity. Once we understand that we are all part of the same species, of the same long story, it is possible to feel a connection with all people everywhere. We can imagine ourselves in their position and know that what happens to them could happen to us. All human beings have a right to dignity and to our concern. We continue with Afo Ori. One of the most wonderful things about serving our congregation is that I've had the opportunity to befriend so many wonderful teachers, so many wonderful scholars, especially those who deal in thought, in humanism, in ideas. One of those, one of my mentors, one of my teachers, is Dr. Mike Whitty, Professor Emeritus at the University of Detroit Mercy. He is a world-renowned humanist and futurist, as we'll hear. He is well known for both his political activism and his policy advocacy, and his concerns range from social justice issues to labor and urban issues to drug policy reform. Known locally as Dr. Detroit, Mike is famously but realistically optimistic about humanity's future. He's a very popular lecturer. Even during this time, he's been in numerous Zoom opportunities to share his message. He recently turned his attention to cannabis policy reform. That's actually an ongoing interest of his. But I say recently because it was only a few years ago that here in Michigan, he and the effort that he helped lead was instrumental in a successful campaign for responsible legalization. Mike has spoken frequently to our congregation. It is one of my goals to hear from him every year. And I'm so happy that even at this weird time, I have the opportunity to welcome him as we engage in a conversation about humanism and optimism. Shabbat Shalom, Mike Whitty. Thanks so much, dear and treasured congregant and friend, and a very, very wise person that I'm so happy that you had the time to spend with us on this Shabbat. Let's get right into it. We want to respect our time. You are famously, among our congregants, a member of the Future Society, a longtime optimist, which is one of the reasons I was so excited to have you join us, because I think we need a little optimism right now. So how is it that your futurism, how do you see futurism offering practical hope and realistic optimism?
Well, the World Future Society has a magazine, The Futurist, and a website, worldfuturesociety.org. And the balance of the future is optimistic in terms of forecasting, in terms of marketing research, in terms of big data, in terms of technology bringing humanity together and requiring civility and decency as we are brought tighter together through these technologies that are dominating our era and seem to be projecting closeness and a form of community in the future, which I think humanism represents the best model. So that gives me what I call practical hope and realism. In a more concrete level, it's helping me prepare for surgery next week. So it can be done on a personal level as well as the macrocosmic, what we call forecasting. trend analysis or market research. How will things be for the auto industry 5, 10 years out? That type of stuff.
Most futuristic visionaries and philosophers, I know you've mentioned, are optimists. How are we as humanists going to retain any kind of hopeful optimism in the long haul, particularly at a time when we're all getting, let's put it this way, a little bit more than a little pessimistic?
Yes, well, look, optimism has been present in all great big ideas. Humanism has hung on through some terrible times in the last couple hundred years, if we trace back the origins and essence of humanism. So I think of it as thinking from the heart and being more hopeful. The group in Detroit, Focus Hope. It's a positive virtue. As long as we hang on to our virtues, cultivating them and trying to eradicate negative qualities like pessimism or fear and anger and hate, as long as we hang to our virtues and cultivate them, I think we're going to come out with a happy ending here in terms of the future, our future and our children's future and our grandchildren's future. That's near-term future.
That is something that we're not hearing a lot of today, and frankly, a lot of the pessimism, a lot of the anxieties, the fears, the depression, even a lot of these are mental states that in some cases mental illnesses that we have to deal with that are very important to recognize. But one of the things that humanists have put our faith in is psychology, particularly what we call humanistic psychology. It's not exactly aligned in the same way as non-theistic humanism is, but philosophically, it's very human-focused, very centered on people's needs. And we're now in the middle of a time of great need. We're in the middle of this pandemic. We're isolated. Our social contacts have been cut off. And now we're going into winter months where even the outdoors, at least for those of us who live in the north of the north, as I call it, are going to be dealing with this for the next 3, 4, 5 months. How are we going to apply humanistic psychology and humanistic optimism to this period?
When I taught in California for years, I was a part of the Association of Humanist Psychology, attended many of their programs and presented there. And I say we should all take humanism to heart, take it seriously and purposely and personally. We should be hopeful and futuristic because hope is our doorway to humanistic optimism, and hope and optimism are a good space to be calm and cope with the winter. It's a good moment in our life now if we use a phrase to be a light unto the nations. First of all, we have to be a light unto ourselves, our family and friends. But frankly, we should be able to surrender to the moment, to be here now and to accept what we have on our plate in the moment. If we take it day to day, we can be strong, and that strength will give us the bravery to handle even sickness, old age, and death, let alone winter, and a joyous spring, a vaccine. I got my flu shot. I think we just should be after our inner peace so that we can give our outer peace and common thanks and joy for our lives, for the joy of living, for the remarkable experience of life itself, to trust ourselves to life. That's what I'm aiming for, and the blessings are concrete. The Shabbat services, Gail and I have attended more of them through Zoom, thanks to your tremendous productions, than even the last prior year or two. So now I think we've got a Temple men's group that I'm a very grateful member of, and lots of things to do to communicate, reach out, make a phone call, old-fashioned phone call, let alone Skype with the kids in another state. Our health, maybe our backyards and our homes and our companions, our lovers, our partners, our friends, our great summer that we indeed thrived in. We survived a beautiful Indian summer. We've still got some more of it left. Put on your coat and take a walk around the block or go into nature. Let nature be your religion. Let's have nature be our medicine. Let's reappreciate the colors. Let's reappreciate our lovely neighborhoods and the landscaping and our wonderful city. So those are the blessings that I think of, and the silver lining is home, family, friends, and maybe a little positive psychology, but basically to relax and release and deal with what's in front of you.
So I want to actually underscore that. I'm not a person who's spent a lot of time in the great outdoors in my life. The joke is that I am at two with nature, but I have found that going outside every day, and I'm a little worried that the winter is going to prevent this, and appreciating the colors, the flowers in the spring, the colors now, that these are things that have given me just a little bit of peace every day, because I'm living in a state of, as many of us are, of great anxiety, and of while I'm fortunate to live with a loving husband, and not all of us have loving relationships that we're able to express during these times. I miss my children desperately. I miss my grandson desperately. But having this technology is something that I'm grateful for. You know, I get ticked off all the time. We talked before we turned on the recording about Facebook and the misinformation and the things in technology, as you mentioned, that bring us or push us further apart. But having the ability, for instance, just to sit here with you and soak up some of your famous optimism does help. And finally, just before we move on to the next question that I have for you, this issue of gratitude in humanism. We just came out of Sukkot, so as Jews, as humanistic Jews, maybe we're not as connected to Sukkot, but that was really the fall gratitude holiday for us. We've got Thanksgiving coming up. It's always something humanists talk about at this time of year. And we're not going to be with our families. We're not going to be doing the kinds of things that we're used to doing. But by the same token, we have, as humanists, had to learn to cultivate gratitude, because since we're not sending it outward, we have to find it inward. And so I appreciate your words, especially about the value of living and being alive. It is something that is rare. Let me move on to the next question. So we're in the middle of this election. This is possibly, we always say this, the most important election of our times. Is maybe the most important election in the history of the United States. We're all feeling scared. We're feeling repressed and suppressed by the powers that be, who don't want us to vote or participate. How is it that you're remaining optimistic, and what can you do to help us apply optimism to this period?
Well, I say apply positive thinking and positive psychology. Emphasize what you believe in, your values. Don't come at it with arousing fear and anger. Accept everything and be happy about it. Relax through the election and the COVID pandemic. Remain calm through it all. Enjoy a little of the humor in the thing that's a little crazy. But, be creative and brave. Contribute in your own best way. Do your homework and vote intelligently. This too will pass. This too will pass. It is a moment of challenge, but I like the path of non-resistance, letting be, accepting life in a deep philosophic way, and not to be fearful, loving more, especially the now, and put some time in on it to contribute to your interest in the big picture, the future of our country and the world, your grandchildren's time. Be a futurist and think, how will what I'm doing today and the next 3 weeks help my grandchild when they stop and think about their grandparent? So I think we can be energetic and hopeful about the election and optimistic.
The calmness part, I think, is one of the most difficult things, because we're also worried and anxious and
what
right now. But I do find that participating, even though we are not able to participate, all of us, in the way that we could have before the pandemic, that participating, if it doesn't bring us calm, at least brings us this sense of contributing to the future. So I do appreciate your say on that.
Absolutely.
Just in the couple of minutes we have left, a couple of more things. You talk about, and you've spoken at the temple about this before, and you speak to a variety of groups around our community and elsewhere. And maybe this fits in with what you were saying, the role of acceptance, of surrender. Does that mean that we give in, or what? What do you mean when you talk about those things?
If I accept my condition in spring, that I'm in isolation because of the COVID and my age in particular, if I accept that situation, maybe I can open more space for my creativity and cope with it better. So acceptance, in my mind, is more skillful coping. Maybe I accept my surgery next week and surrender to the health system and their care and their skills and relax. And therefore, I've got more energy and space to be creative and be energetic and go back to delivering yard signs for a president to people. And I walk up and hand them the yard sign and they smile. And so I can have it both ways. If I am accepting and surrendering to life itself, I can find man's search for meaning almost anywhere.
I have to say, I never walk away from a talk with you, a conversation, or one of your lectures without feeling just a little bit better about the future. So thank you so much for sharing that with us on this Shabbat.
And let everyone have a little bit of solitude, a whole lot of gratitude, and a loving attitude. That's
Exactly.
my mantra. Thank you.
And best wishes with your surgery next week. And we'll be including you on our well wishes until we know that your condition has been completely taken care of. Thanks so much, Mike.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much once again for joining us, Dr. Whitty. We continue with a reading. At the 2011 World Humanist Congress, the Oslo Declaration on Peace stated this: "Peace is more than just the absence of war. Peace requires respect for the worth and dignity of our fellow human beings, tolerance among individuals, and harmony within each person. It also requires global justice in place of global inequalities, not least in the elimination of hunger and thirst in a world that produces plenty. As Eleanor Roosevelt once said, it isn't enough to talk about peace. One must believe in it. And it isn't enough to believe in it. One must work at it." Continue with Shabbat Shalom. In this community where we find strength and common purpose, we turn our minds and hearts toward all those who need our love and support, those who are ill, those who suffer pain of the body or spirit, those who are lonely, those who have been wronged. Tonight, our well wishes are extended to these members of our community and to their loved ones, to David Finkel, Cece Stone, Julie Eliason, Karen Tremper Harris, Myron Tink, Robert Liebhaber, and Andrew O'Donnell. May all who suffer know that they are not alone. May they be healed quickly. May they experience a complete recovery, a refuah shlema, the renewal of their bodies and the renewal of their spirits.
Find the courage to make our lives a
Our thoughts turn to those who are no longer with us, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every people and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We recall now our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have taken into our hearts with our own. Tonight, our congregation continues to mourn the recent passing of Elaine Gluckman and of Bernice Bunny Lasker, as we also recall the yahrzeits of Betty Porter, Edwin B. Grauer, Harry Oberstein, Shuli Eisen, Steve Marco, Alfred Schwartz, and Edward Stawicki. Yehi zichram livracha, may memories of these beloved people provide us with some measure of comfort as we must go through our lives now in their absence. Well, that's our Welcoming Shabbat program for tonight. I failed to mention at the very top of the program that Natan Fuchs's very popular history class is also returning this Sunday morning at 10:30. Anyway, go to birminghamtemple.com. All the details are there on the link to the newsletter. We post it every week, Tuesdays. You don't need to even subscribe. And we'll look forward to seeing you all in this format next Friday night. Shabbat Shalom. May we know peace as we go on our way. Our closing song.
May we know peace as we go on our way. May we be guided by love. May we be possessed of health and joy. May this be our future. Shalom. 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 May this be our future. Shalom. May we abide in safety and in love. May grace and compassion find their ways